Peace and blessings, family. And peace and blessings, and welcome to the Descendants, the DUSCS Weekly Live. We're going to be doing this show live. And just to state out to the earth that we are the descendants of United States chattel slavery, aka FBA, aka ADOS. It's all the same people. And today we are going to go on record against our enemies and those who appear to be our enemies. Before we do that, Father, I ask that you be with all of these meetings that we have, and that you open the minds and hearts of your people to not just sit on the sidelines and be proactive. Selah, so be it. So I'm going to introduce myself. You guys know me as your good brother C. I believe in the book wholeheartedly, but this is inside of the book. But this, our action and what we're doing, goes beyond the pale of being just an Israelite. This goes back to ultimately us claiming our heritage, our nationalism, and also claiming everything that is owed to us. Now I'm going to let the sister Wise Society introduce herself. Go ahead, sis.
Shalom to the people of the book. It is amazing to be able to be here during this time, this era, this day. All of it was preordained. And so we are very grateful. And I'm glad that you are tuning in. You're definitely going to want to tune in for the entirety of the show to hear the call to action that we have coming up here.
Okay, so now having said that, let's go ahead and talk about the topic. I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to let you dialogue, sis, if you don't mind.
Absolutely. And so as he brings up that screen, what we're going to be talking about today is the fact that Ghana's foreign minister, Ablakwa, if that's how you say his name, Ablakwa, publicly credited Al Sharpton and Ben Crump by name as prominent figures whose advocacy helped to build the global coalition behind the resolution. That resolution, um, talking about slavery being trafficking and the gravest crime known to man, goes by the number A 80 L dot 48. So, those of you who haven't seen it, I'm sure that most people have, can go and look it up. It's going to be A 80 L dot 48. Ben Crump and Al Sharpton also participated in high level UN events in New York days before the vote. Okay. Neither of them has publicly distinguished who the descendants of US chattel slavery actually are, giving a legal definition. We're not talking about metaphors and euphemisms or, lofty sounding words. We're talking about to distinguish who we actually are as a legally distinct group outside of the African Union framework. And that silence has consequences. Maybe not to them, but it does to us. And so this is why it's very important that you stay tuned in to hear what our call of action is going to be. Now, this is not a personal attack because we don't have to personally attack anyone. We just tell the truth and talk about what is. This, what we're talking about today, is a structural argument about our legal standing and representation, not only at the UN, but before the entire world, right? Going back to what our brother C said about identity and declaring who we are. So by minute 45, and that's where we're aiming for, you will understand the danger and know what we already filed, and you will know exactly what to do before August 15th. So we're not here to cancel anyone. We're here to protect our legal standing. And that requires us to be very specific about what was endorsed and what wasn't. So right now we're going to go into a clip and then we'll be right back with you for commentary on it.
Okay, sis, I'm trying to find the clip right now, so that's on me. So give me a second to find it. So as
It's
I find
okay.
let's see here. So it happens when you jiggle wires against yourself, right?
It's all good.
Okay. I think I found it. Okay, so I'm going to throw the video up right now.
Saying hi to all the people in the chat viewing this live.
Shalom to the family in the chat. You guys give a like. You guys know what to do. And if you're not saved, you know what you need to do on that as well.
Okay, we can't hear it.
Can you hear the audio, sis?
No.
Okay, let me stop sharing and try it again. Hold on. Also share audio. Okay, yeah, that's on me again. Jiggle wires against myself. So what happens when you're out of practice? Okay, can you see it now?
Yep, can see it.
But global economic first point is
Just
that
can't hear
we are at a pivotal moment where
You cannot hear it?
Can you hear it?
I can.
Okay. So
Ask the family, put a 1 up if you can hear it. And let me know what they're saying in the chat, if they can hear it or not.
Yeah, they can hear it. We're good.
You can hear it?
Okay, you can hear it. Okay, so I'm just gonna lay back until it stops. Thank you.
Okay, I'm gonna start from the beginning. Thanks, fam.
first point is that we are at a pivotal moment where reparations are not just moral conversations, but global economic imperatives. Point 2, the historic justice cases that we have embarked upon, that being Malcolm X versus the United States agencies, Henrietta Lacks versus the international pharmaceutical community, and Tamara Lanier lawsuit against Harvard University. These cases embody the 5 forms of reparations under international law, that being restitution, compensation, rehabilitation, satisfaction, and guarantees of non-repetition. As Minister Samuel Ablakwa, the Minister of Foreign Affairs for Ghana, and I discussed last evening, we have an opportunity to transform the transatlantic slave routes from Africa to the Americas, from African graveyards to economic resurrections. Point 3. With our model of reparations through litigation, we endeavor to evolve from justice from courtrooms to global frameworks for the entire diaspora. Justice still delayed is not simply justice being denied, but it is justice being actively resisted by present day actors. And just as these present day actors are unapologetic in their white supremacist beliefs, sisters and brothers, we must be unapologetic defenders of Black life, Black liberty, and Black humanity.
And so I now have the pleasure of bringing on the mentor of Black America's Attorney General, the fount of this, Reverend Al Sharpton, who is for 4 decades a central figure in the U.S. struggle for racial justice from the streets to the Senate, a civil rights leader, founder of the National Action Network, and of course, host of MSNBC's Politics Nation. Please take the floor.
Thank you very much. Let me start by saying that I'm going to be very personal in the sense that I came to the UN 30 some odd years ago with a great African leader. I was part of the delegation with Nelson Mandela when he addressed the General Assembly about sanctions in South Africa. I come many times since then, and I'm here today because I believe another great African leader, President Muhammad, is raising. is raising an issue that is very important and personal to us. As Attorney Crump has said, we have fought on many cases, and I'm doing a eulogy tomorrow, day after tomorrow, of a young man killed in Hartford, Connecticut. But all of these are just examples of a systemic problem that has not been dealt with. We can keep running from incident to incident, but if we do not deal with the underlying systematic problem, and that is that there are those that feel they have the right and the supremacy over other humans, and they will never be held accountable for it and never pay for it. This resolution is an attendance sheet on what nations stand for what. This is not a new call. I come out of the Martin Luther King School of Thought, but Malcolm X said we may have to go to the UN. One of his main disciples, Dr. James Smalls, is with us. Queen Mother Moore said this. Queen Mother Blakely's here. Sister, I don't come with others that have not. Sister Salam. These are people that have been in the streets for decades. And State Senator Saunders, all of us, but many of them preceding me. The question is not what the people feel. The people have stated their feelings and will continue to and must galvanize. The question is, what do nations stand for? When I hear nations saying they're going to abstain from a vote, how do you abstain from being a racist and a bigot? How do you abstain from paying your debt to people that you worked for centuries and never paid? How do you abstain from the guilt and the blood that's on your hands while you deposit money in banks that your forefathers didn't earn and our forefathers worked and never got paid? When Alexander Sharpton died, his widow, Anna Thurman, sold her slaves to Florida, who was your great-grandfather. That's only 3 generations from me. We talk about this stuff like this is some bygone generation. My mother had to sit in the back of the bus and couldn't help me with homework when she came to Brooklyn, New York, had me. I never sat in the back of a bus, but I was raised by them that never got paid for what was done. We are sitting in the United Nations, but it is in the United States where they're right now deciding whether they will continue to allow us to vote properly. They're going to vote on whether or not we are going to have our right to voting, our right to redress. And if the United Nations sends a resounding message on President's resolution that we don't care about the debt owed, you are signaling those that are trying to trump the world that you can do whatever you want to do to us. So my challenge is, and the experts have given the great background and the preceding speakers have given the facts, but my appeal is that you will not define our humanity. You will define where you stand for humanity. When you vote for your nation, history will record that after the genocide perpetrated on people, after the worst form of abuse that we've seen in terms of the slave trade that is in this resolution, that if your nation would authorize you to either vote no or have laryngitis and act like you can't speak up at all, then you are co-signing this brutal form of slavery. There will be nobody that will duck being called on the carpet tomorrow. Either you stand for justice or you sit with the unrighteous. Either you stand for justice or you are part of the problem. Either you stand for those that want to be free or you're just as bad as the slave masters that held us bondage. Thank you.
That voted against the resolution was the United States. Were you disappointed by that vote?
So I would like to comment on the reasons they gave. They sought to create the impression that the time for negotiations have been short. The president of Ghana served notice last year in September. Immediately thereafter, we put together a broad-based coalition, including experts, academics, researchers, historians from all regions of the world. And we commenced negotiations. We allocated 3 hours, twice the time, and had multiple rounds of negotiations. So there are some that to us, it is clear that even if we gave them 50 years, they would say that the time is not enough. Secondly, the claim they have made that we are seeking to create a hierarchy of crimes. We have stated clearly that it is not about hierarchy. We are only speaking to a historical fact. Never in the history of mankind have we had such a systemic crime. We took over 3 centuries, more than 300 years, with its consequences still lingering onto this day. manifesting in racism, in structural inequality. What is fundamental, which nobody can deny, is that more than 12.5 million people were forcibly removed from the continent. More than 3 million people died, were tossed into the transatlantic ocean, which is a mass grave site. And in our country, Ghana, the country with the highest number of slave forts and castles, we are living witnesses on a daily basis. When we go into those castles and forts and we see the door of no return, we break down.
One of the key reasons raised by the United States for which reason we are abstaining is the lack of clarity on who is the recipient of the reparatory justice. What is your response to that?
It's surprising. In this resolution, talked about frameworks which you put in place that will take care of the consequences, the lack of opportunity, discrimination, the degradation of people of color. And we have made clear that African leaders or Caribbean leaders are not looking for money. It goes against our conscience to seek to profit from this. We are talking about courses to deal with the structural inequalities. And we are also talking about the return of artifacts. There are thousands of artifacts from Egypt all the way to the Ashanti Kingdom in Ghana. Again, it is totally wrong for a claim to be made that there is no clarity about who benefits from reparatory justice.
All right. And so what you just watched was the Minister of a Foreign Government, African Union, in the photos and in the video, the UN, giving credit to 2 Black American leaders for helping to build the framework that will determine how reparations flow. And without a single word distinguishing the descendants of U.S. chattel slavery as a separate legal group from other groups such as the African Union or the Caribbean Union. That is what we're here to talk about. So before we talk about the endorsement, people need to understand what was endorsed and that being broken down by the resolution. But I want you to realize what the foreign minister said in the end, right? Frameworks. Are we talking about frameworks as in programs? Because we know who's benefited from programs historically, such as the Civil Rights Act of 1964, right? The Voting Rights Act, the affirmative action, different types of acts. And then if you heard what he said people of color. Can someone define, give a legal definition for who those people of color actually are? Because we've heard that term tossed around back and forth, and that doesn't distinguish us within the term, right? So, just want to make sure that you caught some of those keywords. UN announcer endorsing Al Sharpton, bringing on Ben Crump, saying he's the Attorney General for Black Americans, General Attorney, whatever they want to call themselves. But how many of them have actually heard from us? So I wanted to, Brother C, do you have anything you want to say about the video we just watched before I move on to the breakdown of the resolution?
Oh boy, Salt of the Earth is probably going to have to do a show, probably, hopefully either this Friday or this Sunday if the brothers are available, just to cover that. And it won't be a 2 or 3 hour show, but I got a lot of stuff I want to say, and I can't say it now due to the time impact we're on.
Right. So if you could bring up the website, just so we'll have that in the background as I talk about the resolution, that would be great.
Okay,
Right.
I'm going to show the website first, and family, I'm going to put it on a banner. If you guys could go to the website, because this is not just something philosophical or anecdotal that we're talking about. There's a call to action on everyone's life who claim to be ADOS, who claim to be FBA, who claim to be a descendant of United States chattel slavery. If you claim to be an Israelite, Muslim, agnostic, atheist, it doesn't matter. What matters is that you understand the call to action and you heed the call and then you act upon it. So what you see scrolling on the bottom is the website. This is the website, is all the information, all the submissions that we've done. So I'm going to stop sharing that because I do have the UN General Assembly on another tab. So I'm just going to pull that up. So give me a second. So fam, this is a call to action for you to get involved, not just stand on the sidelines. It's for all of us to be involved. It's for me to be involved. So if you haven't done a submission, make sure that we all are in the process of doing that. So there's the, let me know if you can see it on the screen.
Yep, I can see it. And
okay,
so
great. I'm
here
take
you
it down.
have,
Go ahead, sis.
here you have the actual resolution, which is now law, international law. And like I said, if you wanted to find it, you can look it up under A-80-L.48. All laws are, created with number systems so that they can be codified, which means that they are systemically written, organized, and monitored in a certain way, in a system of laws. So this is the resolution the UN voted for, but the US voted against, right? And what does it actually say? So the part of the resolution that we do absolutely support is that it declares that the transatlantic slave trade was the gravest crime against humanity and calls for reparatory justice. This is correct and necessary because in past times, the resolution, such as other resolutions, they were just informative. They didn't have the crime aspect of it. And so when you say that someone did something to you to declare it a crime, then you establish that it was a crime that took place and that some type of remedy, legal remedy, must come from the harm of that crime that it caused on you. Okay. So that being the gravest crime against humanity, calling for reparatory justice is correct and necessary. Where the problem begins is the framework operates through and by the African Union, CARICOM, and the category that is legally designated are people of African descent or the greater diaspora, right? The greater diaspora, by which the African Union and CARICOM can lead and represent our interests in this matter. They have designated us as the people of African descent. You see that as people of African descent, being a global category, it includes recent Nigerian immigrants, Afro-Europeans, Afro-Brazilians, anyone who they declare has African heritage worldwide without even necessitating hearings or anything to prove that fact, right? So as descendants of US chattel slavery, we aren't even really defined in this. And it's important for us to be defined because we were held as chattel slaves under very specific rules, under a very particular government. And as it stands right now, people of African descent, who are they going to demand the reparations from? If we say, okay, yeah, you represents our interests and we're just these people of African descent with the general African diaspora, who are they demanding reparations from? The UN? The UN is just a governing body that, pertains to all governments that want to be involved, meaning all countries, all states as members, right? So are they going to take up an offering? This is why it's important to legally designate what group you're talking about. That needs to be very specific. It needs to be lineage based, and it has to be based on the location as well, the duration of time, and the harm that it caused in order for it to be a true remedy. It's not one of those worldwide things. Yes, they made this declaration worldwide, but when it comes to our representation, we truly didn't have any. It doesn't matter if Al Sharpton and Ben Crump were sent to, invited to endorse. They didn't talk to us. They didn't bring forward our proof and our evidence of what we would have had to establish to be asking for a legal remedy in the form of reparations. And when I hear the talk, it sounds like they're just looking for more rights, more frameworks. I also need to remind you all that it's hypocrisy for the African Union to stand and demand that reparatory justice take place and not admit to or deal with the fact that many of the kingdoms within their union were enslavers as well, or either benefited somehow from slavery. So this is why the designation matters. A lot of the things that we inherited from the US based slavery, chattel slavery, can be specifically tied to uh, colonial statutes like Partis Sequitur Ventrum, 1992 Virginia statute that made slavery heritable through the mother under US domestic law. Nobody else can prove that point, even though Partis Sequitur Ventrum was brought up in the resolution, right? We're the only ones that have that particular claim under law. These are different legal claims with different responsible parties. So it has to be delineated. Okay, has to, because varying remedies apply. If you were a lineage based slavery on an island that wasn't a part of the U.S. law that codified Partis Sequitur Ventrum, meaning that the child's slave status was inheritable by the mother because that which followed the womb, then who is responsible for you as an islander being enslaved? The duration counts, the laws that were in effect counts, because that goes to how you can request or demand a remedy. The African Union negotiates for African citizens within its borders. Legally, it cannot negotiate for descendants of US chattel slavery and claim them as the African diaspora or people of African descent generally. The descendants of US chattel slavery are US citizens. The AU has no legal standing to settle our specific claim against the US government, and especially with the US's outright rejection, no vote on the law itself. Even though it's still passed, we know that those US specific remedies have to be fought for by people that suffered under the US laws. And as of right now, in the US, there is no legal pathway to a legal remedy for the harm that was caused to us lineage based. Okay. So we're not asking to be, divisive or separated from people that actually who, belong in, who are our people. We're not saying all of them are, but there may be some people in other scattered abroad that are, right? However, they have to file for their own claim. We're insisting that our specific legal claim not be diluted by being folded into a category that was never subject to US chattel slavery laws. Brother C, you want to say anything about that?
Yeah, I do want to make a comment on what that African dude said. I'm not supposed to respect him or respond to his seat or where he stands or what he means to that African nation. But for him to say that we don't want money is ridiculous.
Right.
He doesn't represent us. So if this framework says, okay, you're not going to get any money or any gold, any silver, platinum, radium, rhodium, and land, then what is the point? What are you doing?
And that's why I said, to me, it sounds like more voting rights, civil rights, frameworks, equal programs.
To hell with all of
Everybody
that.
gets
Sorry
the
for stepping on your
benefit
toes.
from.
To hell with
No,
all of that.
I
To
hear
hell
you.
with all of that. To hell with all of that. What he talking about, what Sharpton talking about, and what that mumble mouth Crump talking about. Matter of fact, I'm gonna say this. I said it in private. I'm gonna say it publicly. Crump shouldn't be a public speaker because he's horrible. Anyway, let's keep going. Terrible speaker.
Well, I mean, this is what we're about to, talk about, right? Like, the documented record shows that Sharpton and Crump endorsed the resolution. Were invited to do so and willfully did so. And what they didn't say was about the descendants of US chattel slavery in particular's legal standing, which I'm shocked because Ben Crump is an attorney. He knows that you have to have legal standing. He talked about the 5 pillars of, reparations that were included inside of the, law that passed, but didn't specifically say that descendants of U.S. chattel slavery have a particular legal standing in a particular claim. Okay. And that would have been able to establish us having, quote unquote, our day in court. Right. And so I see the comment here. Yes, I believe that's true, because you can tell by the actions and the words what's said and what wasn't said. So if what I'm saying is that the record shows they participated and received public credit for advancing a framework without publicly distinguishing who we are as a separate legal group. They were physically at the UN event before the vote took place. The Ghana's foreign minister named both of them. You heard the people on the UN floor clapping for them and naming them. And at the level of international advocacy, what you don't say is as consequential as what you do say. So the whole world is involved in this, what was not said. Okay. The record shows that, they were involved in the negotiations by name. They did not declare anything with particular about us being legally distinct with a particular claims against the US. And the absence of those statements matters when it comes to legal remedies and claims. If a lawyer that goes around America fighting the good fight, as they will say, and I'm just paraphrasing it, didn't recognize that we have to legally define who is the beneficiary, figure out the legal standing, differentiate where that legal standing is taking place, whether it be against the US, whether it be against Britain, whether it be against, whatever member states of the UN, then it's just a lot of fluff. It's just a lot of fluff. And I don't want our people to get caught up in the good feeling of something being declared, right? We can't get caught up in the fact that, oh, now they're admitting that they did wrong. I see a lot of people reposting this as a celebratory moment, but you're about to get jacked. That's the way I'm going to say it. Because you're not even legally distinguished within that framework that they created. And we don't even know what other negotiations were happening behind closed doors. We weren't privy to those negotiations. We weren't privy to the discussions that happened with the invites. We weren't privy to who chose who was going to be invited. And so that already shows a pattern of events taking place without the descendants of U.S. chattel slavery having the knowledge or awareness to even be able to stake their claim. So with that being said, I wanted to go to the website and touch on some of the filings that we have already filed. We've seen this pattern before. We're not about to create frameworks, laws, rules, reparations, and all these other things that benefit everybody else. The Ghana foreign minister said people of color. So that lets you know that they're already putting this inclusion in. So that being said, we have already filed 6 documents. We, meaning the descendants of U.S. chattel slavery. I have been the lead petitioner writing these all to make sure that they're in on time, literally 8 days after the UN resolution was passed and signed. I submitted to all of the, appropriate parties a declaration that we needed to be legally distinguished and distinct in this claim and heard. We need our quote unquote day in court. Okay, we have our own evidence. We have our we can represent ourselves, and no one else who claims to be representing us is representing us. The African Union has their own agenda. They did not consult with us, neither did Al and Ben. And under the people of African descent or diaspora framework, we will be left out. So when we're looking at these filings, you can go on the website and see them for yourself. Those 6 filings are pertaining to, what can be done legally. We sent one to the UN Human Rights Committee. We sent one to the UN Special Rapporteur on contemporary forms of racism. We sent one to the UN General Assembly, the hearing that you just saw where they took the vote, where the numbers were counted up. We even sent one to the South Africa Minister Lamola at DIRCO, okay, letting them know that the AU does not represent the interests of the descendants of U.S. chattel slavery. We sent one to the Inter-American Committee on Human Rights, declaring that, who we are and that we have a legally distinct claim as the descendants of U.S. chattel slavery. So 6 filings in 5 different forums and none through the African Union. We got to declare that. We need to make that very clear. They are not representing our interests. All naming the descendants of U.S. chattel slavery specifically, all timestamped. I have receipts and all on the permanent international record. And if you could guess how many responses we've gotten back, and you probably guessed 0, then you're right. Okay, so just know that they have been informed. We filed them the way that you're supposed to legally submit documents. And so now we're going to go into the call of action, right? Because the documents that were filed forced the US and the UN to address the descendants of US chattel slavery conditions in its next periodic review, which that will be coming up in this November of this year. Treaty obligation, it's not optional, right? So we're saying that the US doesn't have an option under its treaty obligation, whether it wants to address this or not. It's not an option. The special rapporteur country report can include the thing that we filed to their office. Government must respond in writing, publicly, and in the permanent record. The IACHR admissibility review, it needs to say what its findings are and do an investigation. We sent South Africa a notice, and if the international panel is adopted in September, because there's gonna be another meeting in September under the General Assembly, where South Africa has also requested to pass a resolution on an international economic equity panel so that they can research and give findings on how labor and workforce and economic advantages or disadvantages stem from slavery, right? So we need to be a part of these discussions. Brother, see, you have anything you wanted to add to that?
No, I don't. Let's keep moving.
All right. So I'm talking directly to each of you. If you are considering yourself a U.S. descendant of chattel slavery, whether that be FBA, ADOS, or whatever you call yourself, you need to submit your claim. On that website, we have given a template. You can either use that and send it to the emails on it, or you can create your own, right? You heard Al Sharpton giving his story about what happened when he was a child and how he, his lineage-based slavery, but that represents his interests. You have to represent your own interests, right? One thing that I can do is file the documents to legally submit this information so that it can be a matter of public record. But what you have to do is submit your own claim, your own personal testimony. And that's what you'll see right here. Your submission is not symbolic, it's legal evidence. So just know that. What happens is it strengthens all of the other pending complaints that we filed and make sure that these things are on the record. right? The volume does matter. Right now, we can be ignored because maybe they don't take us seriously. They went and got, Al Sharpton and Ben Crump to try to counteract before the world any claims that would have come, like the ones that we're bringing, saying they don't represent us, and we actually haven't been heard or been able to present evidence about who we are. Right now, they have the bigger microphone. But the more that people are submitting, the more that it cannot be ignored or denied. And so with that being said, I need everybody to go to the website, look at the form, put your personal testimony. Don't procrastinate, because we need as many submissions to get on the record before, I would say August 15th, so that it would force the UN to acknowledge what we are saying and give us our right to be heard prior to their September conference, their September General Assembly meeting. And with that being said, I'm going to just go ahead and stop talking, and you can say whatever you want, Brother C. Because we promised to get the people in and out within 45 minutes.
Yeah, so as I said, thank you, sis. Appreciate all of the effort that you've done. Did you want to talk about that other nuclear bomb that you got in the salvo ready to launch from a sub, or do you want to hold off on that?
We gonna hold off on that. We got to
Okay.
release some of these things
Okay.
timed.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. So listen, fam, those of you who know of other people, other individuals who may not listen to Salt of the Earth Productions, this is a call to action from all of our people, no matter how big your site is, no matter how big your YouTube page is, or any of that. This information must and will go out throughout the whole earth, so that not Salt of the Earth can get recognition, so that we as a people, as a united front, can get the recognition that we deserve. And not just recognition, but that we can bypass these do-nothing boule people. They speak all the time. Al Sharpton and that other Negro spoke, and they was talking about, we've been in this for 40 years. Okay, you've been in this for 40 years, but you have not done a goddamn thing for our people. Not one thing have you done. I would be ashamed to say I've been at the game for 40 years and I have accomplished not a goddamn thing, but only thing that we could do is have galas and have chicken dinners and have luncheons, all on the taxpayer / your own nickel. I'd be ashamed. I wouldn't even show my face in public. Yeah, nigga, you've been at that for 40 years and you ain't accomplished shit.
Nothing.
Yeah, see, your brother C on one right now. Yes, he is.
No, because this is what they do, right? Celebrate each other and themselves with award ceremonies, yet our children get harassed in schools every day, right? Celebrate each other in award ceremonies and boule events, yet nobody's showing up in court to help people that are wrongfully convicted of crimes, right? Where's the coalition to get them off of the wrongful convictions? Over 300,000 Black women or without a job, and they have nothing to say. Okay, but they know how to show up when they get a UN invite and post that all day long as if it's a celebratory moment. And right now we have to put our best legal minds on, because they're using the code, which has always been what they've done historically, codify, are binding, right? And I know a lot of these things are going to be new to some people. Maybe they never even heard of them. But if you believe that the boule represents you, okay, sit there and do nothing. You'll see how that turns out. For the rest of us, we need to get to the other side.
All right, so that's going to end it. So as we normally say, pass this out to all your family members and they need to do submissions as well. Everybody in your household need to do submissions. And we're going to do a follow-up show, sis. I'm going to have the brothers give their commentary on not only this, but on that silly video. And so,
okay, Brother C, can
minutes.
I say this real quick? Yep. Let me say this real quick.
Sure.
This is what it looks like when you are not claiming to represent people, but you're actually giving them the opportunity to speak for themselves. So what we are handing you is power in your hand to speak for yourself. I'm not going to go around legally submitting documents on behalf of descendants of U.S. chattel slavery without the people having the ability to speak for themselves. So this is what it looks like. If you're used to someone else representing you, you're going to continue to get what you've always gotten. It's time to stand up and speak for yourself.
And this has been another Salt of the Earth Productions.